Let's talk about this report that came out from the Cato Institute, one of the last organizations I thought I would be citing, but facts are facts, and this is the data that they found. According to the a report, an article from the Cato Institute this morning, the Government Accountability Office reported that quote unquote traditional right-wing extremists make up the vast majority of domestic terrorist incidents. They counted 85 incidents of extremism between September 12th, 2001 through or since rather, and so they counted 62 incidents that were committed by right-wing extremists. The remainder 23 were committed by radical Islamic violence extremists. So of the 85 incidents of violence that have occurred in the United States since that resulted in death, not just riots, but death, since 2001, since the day after September 11th, 73% have been committed by traditional right-wing extremist groups. These are your white nationalists, neo-Nazis, Nazis. These are all these organizations. 27% committed by Islamic extremists. Now, if you want to know why America's terrified of Muslims and not Billy Bob, it's because if you look at the media coverage between 2011 and 2015, there was 449% more coverage on Islamic related attacks than any other coverage for any other attacks from right-wing extremists. So whereas radical white nationalists, neo-Nazis, right-wing groups account for 73% of the violence that led to death since 2001, September 12, 2001, 73%, 449% of the coverage has gone to cover radical Islamic terrorism. You know, we talk about this. I think I've shared some data that corresponds with this, that you're much more, and this is actually, so the first set of data that we discussed that is similar to this actually included mass shootings, which mass shootings are not always related to right-wing terrorism. And so in that first example we discussed a few years ago, we discussed how it's more reasonable and more rational for you to be terrified of people named Bill than Ahmed, because in the United States, people just regular Joes, Bill, William, Kevin, whatever, Ben, they're more likely to go on a mass shooting spree than, someone who's traditionally seen as Islamic terrorist. But this actually drills down even further. And even if you, and before I go any further, let's address this issue. I'm not sure why the original report from the Government Accountability Office did not include September 11th in their data, because including September 11th in the data really doesn't change their position. Out of, let's say, 85 violent extremist incidents that resulted in death since September 12th, the only thing that would have changed would have been there's 86 violent extremist incidents that resulted in death since September 11th. And you would have accounted for September 11th. They're not counting the number of bodies, because September 11th, 2,500 to 3,000 people were killed on September 11th. So they're not counting the number of people killed. They're counting the number of incidents. And if you're counting the number of incidents, adding in September 11th doesn't change your data or your position whatsoever. So I'm not sure why the Government Accountability Office didn't include September 11th. Even if they had, the point is still the same. About 73% of all of the violent extremist incidents that led and resulted in death are committed by right-wing traditional terrorist organizations in the United States. 27% committed by Islamic violent extremists. There's another article that's really, really popular and it comes through online pretty regularly, that underscores this, from NBC, that says that white terrorism is the greatest level of terrorism in the United States. We don't consider it though. And we have a president who won't address a single incident of this terrorism, of this white terrorism that happens in the United States. He can't. The reason he can't is because he's supported by these groups. If they vote at all, who the hell do you think they voted for in this election? I mean, let's just be clear. Everyone tries to go back to the foundings of the KKK and go back to the 60s and say the Democratic Party was against the Civil Rights Act in the 1964. And this is true. This is true. The Ku Klux Klan was a democratic organization as well as a Christian organization. They'll leave that out, but it was a Christian democratic organization. The Democratic Party, yes, they were against the Civil Rights Act. Overwhelmingly, the Southern Democrats were against it in 1964, 1965. However, who the hell do you think the Klan voted for? If they voted at all, who do you think these terrorist white nationalist organizations voted for if they voted at all? Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump has a fervent support group in white nationalist organizations. He was endorsed by a KKK newspaper. So he's not going to address these issues. And it's not, we're going to get to the media next, but he's not going to address these issues because it's a core part of his base. That's Donald Trump. The media, they are so complicit in the xenophobia that we see today. They are complicit because they know ratings sell. And if they want to sell ratings, put something on the news about radical Islamic terrorism, because that's going to drive their ratings. This is going to drive the war in Afghanistan, the continuing war in Iraq. It's going to drive the drone strikes. This is how you continue to get consensus from the population to sign off on this, by pushing this in. You're not going to drop bomb. You're not going to get any defense contracts after going after white nationalism. You're not. Maybe a 0.01% of what you could get going after Islamic terrorism. So there's clearly, and the reason you can connect this directly, if you ever watch the news, which I suggest you don't do, but watch the commercials. Northrop Grumman, watch Lockheed Martin on MSNBC, the liberal station. So if you want to know why the media, they're complicit in this, 449% more coverage of radical Islamic terrorism attacks between 2011 and 2015, it's because the people who paid their bills benefit off of having an accepted consensus in the United States that we should bomb the hell out of Muslims. So Donald Trump is not going to say anything about it because that's his support group, but the media is going to push this narrative because that's who pays their bills. Meanwhile, as you walk down the street, the real threat, or at least 73% of the threat, is coming from white, right-wing nationalist organizations.